Hey guys, thanks for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. If you're a returning listener, it's great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, we're really glad you joined us and hope you like what you hear. So, Salty Ginger Talk is a place where self-leaders come to sharpen their mindset, own their power, and live with purpose. And today, we're going to talk about why outsiders, people who think differently, people who don't just accept things at face value, win. So, deep topic, good things, but stay with us here. The world rewards conformity, plain and simple. History tells us a different story, though. The biggest breakthroughs, the greatest comebacks, and the boldest ideas came from people who refused to fit in, who refused to accept the status quo. And today, in this episode, I'm going to give you 5 tips to help you harness the power of thinking differently. Each tip is backed by research. We're going to give you real-life examples showing each tip in practice, and we're going to give you a clear action you can take today to start implementing these things into your life. So let's just jump right into it here, okay? Tip number 1 is you have to question the default narrative. Don't accept things just because they're widely believed. In the Ash conformity experiments, 75% of people gave obviously wrong answers they knew were wrong, just to go along with the group. Okay, that is unacceptable. And if you want an example of this in real life, just look at COVID. How many people were shaming people for not wearing masks that turned out to have absolutely no scientific evidence or data supporting their efficacy? 0 scientific data. 6 feet, social distancing 6 feet, came from no scientific data. Okay? Several examples in the very recent past that show how willing people are to conform simply because someone they perceive as an authority tells them something without giving them any evidence. All right? So, who's someone that's thought differently? Let's look at Elon Musk. Elon Musk has thought differently his whole life, and it's worked out really well for him in most instances. He was laughed at for betting on electric cars and reusable rockets. Now, because he didn't listen to people, because he did what he wanted to do. By the way, Elon Musk is not an engineer. He's not a rocket scientist. He had no training in either of these things. He just took on problems and figured them out and thought differently than other people. And he's now reshaping both of those industries. So he's a great example of someone that thinks differently and has been wildly successful, largely because he refused to conform. Okay? So what is your action item on this? What's your action item on this one here to not just blindly accept the general narrative that most people assume is true? And look, sometimes it is true. I'm not saying it's not, but a lot of times it's not. We think a lot of things, we take them on faith, we take them as gospel, and they're just not true because we don't question them. So once a week, you're going to take a belief that you have accepted your entire life without thinking about it and challenging it. Ask, who benefits from this? Ask yourself that question when you take on this belief. And ask yourself, what if the opposite was true? Want another example? How about the food pyramid that we were all taught as kids? Anyone remember 4432, a healthy way for me and you? Remember what the 4 things at the top were? Bread, carbohydrates that made people fat, that made people, gave people heart conditions, that made people's blood sugar spike. So it's very difficult to deny that the rise in things like type 2 diabetes and obesity coincided with the introduction of that food pyramid. Oh, by the way, who paid for the research behind the food pyramid? Food companies. Yeah. So, like we talked about, who benefits from this? The people selling you food. What if the opposite were true? How many people do you know that have gone keto or carnivore or paleo or Mediterranean or South Beach or some other form of eating where they simply cut out a lot of starchy carbohydrates, eat them in moderation, and dropped weights and got to a healthy weight and are now healthy? So that's a great example of what we're talking about. You've got to question the narrative. If you want to think differently, that's what you've got to train yourself to do. So ask yourself those 2 questions. Once a week, take something that you have taken at gospel, that you've believed your whole life, but you don't actually have evidence that it's true, and ask yourself who benefits from it being true, and what if the opposite were true? Okay, there's tip number 1. All right, Tip number 2, and this one's important. It's going to be hard for you. I'm warning you right now. Embrace social discomfort. Thinking differently means you've got to be willing to make people uncomfortable and yourself being uncomfortable in lots of situations. That's hard for a lot of people. They want to fit in. They want to conform. They want to be accepted by the group, by the tribe. And some of that's hardwired into our brain from when it was important to be a part of a tribe because there was safety in numbers, when we had to live in the elements and fight off predators on a regular basis and go find our own food. None of those things are true in everyday life anymore, but it's still hardwired in our brain. So it's really hard to accept being, call it a social pariah, social outcast, whatever you want to call it, but people judging you for thinking differently or thinking you're crazy or silly or whatever you want to call it. You got to get past that. If you're going to think differently and you're going to be successful like that, you got to get past those emotions. Psychologist Todd Kashdan found that people who tolerate social discomfort are more innovative and more successful. So, being different sets you apart. It leads you down paths most people won't go down. And you can find lots of good things on those paths if you're willing to do it, if you're willing to accept it. Who's our real world example of this? Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle is a comedian who to this day gets a lot of blowback on jokes that he's willing to tell, and that's his medium. That's his art. He does things to push the envelope, to make people laugh. At one point, he had a show on Comedy Central, and Comedy Central offered him $50 million to extend that show. And he didn't take it. He would not sign the contract. In fact, he disappeared because it didn't align with his values. He had to give up creative control of his show, and he wasn't willing to do it. So he turned down $50 million. How many of you would turn down $50 million? How many of you would be willing to accept $50 million and just shut your mouth and do whatever you were told to do by the group or the company that paid you $50 million? Dave Chappelle said, fuck you, I'm not doing it. And he's been wildly successful ever since. He was ridiculed at the time. He was made fun of, said he was crazy. You'll never overcome this. You'll never get anywhere near that amount of wealth in your life. And yet here he is. He's one of the boldest and most respected comedians in the entertainment business. And everyone looks back on that move and says Chappelle was true to himself, and they have wild respect for the guy now. So there's an example of someone that's very willing to be socially uncomfortable or socially unpopular and has made a great living for himself and a great life for himself because of it. So what can you do to start practicing that? What can you do to build that into your life? Speak one unpopular truth this week. Say something you know is going to rub people the wrong way. Not to make people angry, not to make people upset, but call out a truth that most people accept that you know is false, and you know that it will bother them that you're calling them out on it. Do it at work. Do it with friends. Do it online. Get used to standing by yourself and standing by your principles. If you do that, it will build up an immunity or a tolerance to those situations, and you'll be more and more comfortable being uncomfortable, which is the goal, all right? So you can do that once a week. Say something that you know is true, but is going to be unpopular. And that's a great way to build that into your life. All right, tip number 3, build solitude into your life. You don't need to be connected to people all the time. You don't need to be around people all the time. You don't need to be communicating with people online all the time. Solitude is not loneliness. It's space for deep thought. So neuroscientist Mary Helen Immordino Yang found that solitude activates the brain's default mode network, which fuels creativity and awareness. All right? So by being alone, by having just yourself and your thoughts, it activates a different part of your brain, which fuels creativity and self-awareness. It allows reflection. It allows meditation. It allows you to plan. It allows you to strategize. It allows you to do all things you can't do when you're communicating with someone online, or you're in a conversation, or you're having a meal with someone. Those things are all great. We're not saying don't do them, but there needs to be some solitude in there as well. I personally spend a lot of time by myself. I spend a lot of time thinking. I know my wife does too. Like, we've been married for 33 years and we love being around each other, but we both like alone time as well. And we both respect that when the other one wants it. Like, it's a really good thing to have in your life. Who are some people that also liked alone time? A guy named Nikola Tesla loved being alone with his thoughts. A guy named Steve Jobs loved being alone with his thoughts. A guy named Isaac Newton loved to spend time thinking about things by himself. And they all credited solitude for many of their breakthroughs. So where would the world be if those people said, oh, I got to go to the party. Oh, I've got to be with people all the time. Oh, I can't sit around by myself. Like, it's not the healthy thing to do. You've got to build alone time into your life. So how do you do that? It's real simple. Schedule it. Put it on your schedule. Schedule 30 minutes of alone time every day. Do more if you can, but 30 minutes minimum every day. No phone, no computer, no input. You're not listening to music. You are literally alone with your thoughts. You can have a pen and a notebook if you want it, but that's it. No outside stimulus whatsoever. When you can do it outside, you get bonus points. Doing that out in nature will have a profound effect on your life. Let the sunlight hit your face. Let the wind hit your skin. Smell the smells. Look around. If you can be in nature, it's a great way to do it. Great way to do it. But you've got to build some solitude in your life if you want to learn to think differently and you want to get in touch with your thoughts. All right? Okay. Tip number 4. Create before you consume. So the world wants you to be reactive. The world wants you to conform. You can take that power back by creating before you participate in the society that we've got set up right now. So studies show that passive content consumption spikes dopamine but kills motivation. So let me say that again because I think it's very important. Studies show that passive content consumption spikes dopamine but kills motivation. When you scroll on your phone first thing in the morning, when you check emails first thing in the morning, when you look at social media first thing in the morning, you train your brain to be distracted, not decisive. It's not a place you want to be. Seth Godin writes before he consumes anything. That's how he stays clear and original. You can do the same. Take a walk, work out, sit and meditate, sit in silence. There's all sorts of things you can do to enable yourself to have time to create your day, create your thoughts, create your vision before you do anything else in the day. So what's your action item on this one? Each morning, create before you consume. Do not pick up your phone. Do not pick up your computer. Don't go directly to an electronic device. Sit down and write. Sit down and plan. Sit down and think. Or don't sit down. Move. Move around. Exercise. Walk. Bike. Parasail. Lift weights. It doesn't matter. Before you check your phone, before you jump into the world, do one of those activities to give yourself, what are we doing there also? Solitude. Oh, imagine that. Solitude. And we're creating. We're allowing our brains to think and to process without clouding them with all these other inputs that distract us from what's truly important to us. Okay? And number 5. This will sound a little counterintuitive and a little opposite to what we've talked about, but it's important. You've got to find a group of people who also want to do the things you're doing because you want to interact with them, but you don't need to only be with them all the time. Being different can be lonely if you're doing it alone, but you don't have to be alone. That's the point. You can have other people who do these things and you have a group that you can talk to. A Harvard Business Review study found that people in nonconformist support groups were more likely to take creative and professional risks. Okay? So you want to find other people who think like you. We have over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. There's a group, right? There's lots of people out there who do what you want to do. And you can align yourself with them. You can communicate with them. You can trade ideas with them. Those are all great ways to do it. So real life example, look at the PayPal Mafia, the guys that founded PayPal and invented PayPal. Elon Musk, we've already talked about him. Peter Thiel, he's a billionaire who does angel investing now, and he was part of PayPal. He was the first guy to invest in Facebook. Reid Hoffman, who founded LinkedIn. Mavericks who challenged norms, but they did it together. They were all kind of doing their own thing, but they were a group. They were friends. They communicated. They traded ideas. They talked about what worked and didn't work. They talked about things they did that helped them be creative, be nonconformist, and challenge norms. So they had a group of people who were similarly minded, and they communicate with them on a regular basis. They still communicate on a regular basis. All right? So what's your action item here? Build or join a small group of people, of truth tellers. People who you know will be honest and candid with you no matter what. Join a mastermind group. There's tons of those out there as well. Join a book club. There's tons of those out there. Jump on a message thread. Find a Reddit chat room that makes sense to you. Find people who get what you're about and push you further on the road you're trying to travel. Okay? So the takeaway here, guys, is the world needs more thinkers and leaders, not more repeaters and followers. You can be one of those people. And if you're listening to our podcast, you're probably trying to find your way down that road anyways. So how do we do that? We question the script. We tell the hard truth. We think in solitude. We create before we consume. And we find other people like us who are walking the same path. Being an outsider, being different, is not a weakness. It's an absolute strength. You just have to use it. Okay? All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. James puts it up over here every day. Don't forget to head over to our website, saltygingertalk.com. All of our podcast episodes are available there. All links to all our social media accounts are there. And we publish a newsletter every weekday that you can subscribe to where we cover some current events and give our thoughts on some general ideas. It's a good newsletter. It's a good way to start your day after you've had your solitude and created. You can jump right into our newsletter and it gets you in a positive mindset for the day. So until next time, guys, stay sharp, stay salty, and keep thinking for yourself. Don't just conform. Appreciate you checking out the episode. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you consume it on. We appreciate it if you're able to do that. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.